Well, awesome. Hey, again, I'm going to ask y'all, how y'all doing? Y'all doing better now that you've got the opportunity to worship Jesus? Okay, like 4 of you are doing better now. No, I'm just kidding. How many for real are doing better now after worship? Awesome. There we go. I don't know about you. I know for me personally, though, worship, I need it, okay? Well, as you guys saw there, we are in the middle of a series called Boundaries. We actually started this last week. If you were not here, you didn't get to hear the message, I need you to do one of 2 things for me. Either talk with one of your friends after service that was here and say, hey, give me your notes. Or secondly, go on our CedarPoint.Students YouTube channel and watch last week's message. It was really good. We had lots of positive feedback and everything like that. And what we determined and what we did last week was we just got us all on the same page. Because I know that people are at different places when it comes to boundaries. There's some people that are here that are like, boundaries? Like, what are those? Bands, sorry. And then there's people that are like, hey, I have boundaries, but I really haven't been adhering to them. And then there's other people that are like, I've got boundaries, and I'm not doing anything differently with them or anything like that. And so I just want to let you guys know what we determined last week, just so we're all on the same page as we continue to talk about boundaries, is that boundaries are healthy for us. And that was what we did last week. And I'll be honest with you, because they're healthy for us, and because I personally believe that they're healthy for us, I myself have boundaries. Now, when it comes to my boundaries, though, there are certain boundaries that are for both my benefit and the benefit of others. For example, I have a wife who is beautiful that I've been married to for 7.5 years, that I plan on being married to for the absolute rest of my life. And thank you for the one amen. Like, I appreciate that. Like, everybody else is like, dude, let's just say I'm married up, and when you marry up, you want to make sure you don't lose it, okay? And so what ended up, we've been married for 7.5 years, and we have a 4-year-old son. He's the cutest little boy in the world. He's awesome. He is a mini version of me. And one of the things about that is there are certain boundaries that I have in my life that are not only for my benefit, but also for my family's benefit. For example, I believe that as a husband, it's my job and my role to take care of my wife. And because as a father, I believe it's my job and my role to take care of my son as well. And so when it comes to financial decisions within our household, and even for the future, there are boundaries in place that we have and that I have, so that number one, my family is taken care of, my son is taken care of, but also for my benefit, so that we don't end up living on the streets. And so there are different boundaries that we have in place that we've got, so that way they're for my benefit and for others. Another boundary that I have that's not only for my benefit, but is also for all of your benefits, is this: that when you come and confide in me with something, that when you ask me to pray for you about a particular subject or struggle or family issue that is going on in your life, I don't share that with anybody else. And that's for your benefit, and it's for my benefit. It's for your benefit because I believe that if you're going to trust me with that information, I'm not going to go and tell the rest of the world about that, because I don't want you to be at school and somebody come up and ask you questions about it and you're like, that was personal to me. I didn't want anybody to know about that or about my struggle. And so I have a boundary that when you confide in me, I don't tell anybody that. That benefits you, but it also benefits me because, quite honestly, when you choose to trust me with that information, it means the world to me. And I don't ever want to violate your trust and cause you to feel like you can't come and talk to me. And so as a result of that, when you confide in me, I have a boundary that it's going to stay between us. Now, obviously, if it's something life-threatening and, there's certain things that are going on that we need to talk to some specialist and get parents and notify, we're going to make sure that we do that, but you're going to be a part of that process. You're not ever going to be blindsided by it. And so those are things, though, that boundaries that I have for your benefit and for my benefit. Now, there are some boundaries that I have, though, that are for nobody's benefit but my own. For example, during worship, I put my phone away and I don't ever look at my phone during worship. You want to know why? Because that is a sacred time for me to engage with God and to open up my heart to Him and say, God, here's what I'm going through. Here's what I'm struggling with. I need you to do something. I need you to speak to me. I need you to encourage me. And so during worship, I have a boundary that, hey, you know what? I'm not going to get sidetracked by my phone and allow my phone to distract me. And that doesn't benefit anybody else other than myself in that moment. Here's another practical one, but it serves my point. I try not to overeat. And here's the thing. I love food, especially sweets. Like, sweets are my deal. Like, it's nothing for me to put my son to bed and go get a big bowl of ice cream at like 10:30 at night. And when I say bowl of ice cream, I mean like the whole container of ice cream, and then it's like gone the next day. Like, literally, that's me. Cherry limeade sherbet, or sherbet, however you say it. That's my, dismiss service. I gotta go get some ice cream. No, I'm just kidding. But here's what I've learned. If I eat a lot, guess what? My stomach starts hurting, right? And so I've learned and put a boundary in my life that, you know what, I don't like the way that my stomach feels after I eat a whole gallon of ice cream. So I've determined that I'm going to put a boundary in my life that when I start to feel fuller, that I'm going to use smaller portions. Those are boundaries that I have for my benefit. Can I tell you one other example of this? Is I have a boundary that's laid out in my life that anytime somebody does me wrong, I've made it my mind up ahead of time, and I have a boundary in my life that's saying I'm going to forgive that person no matter what. That is a boundary that I have in my life for my benefit. Because here's what I believe. I believe if I choose not to forgive that person, that there is something in my heart in that moment that has become hardened, that has become insensitive to God's voice and His leading and His guiding, and that's not a place that I ever want to be. And as a result of that, I have made a conscious decision to say, here is my boundary, that anytime somebody does me wrong, I'm going to choose to forgive them. Now, that doesn't mean that I instantly trust that person again. It doesn't mean that that person has to take steps to gain back and earn back my trust. But from the very start, I've made it up in my boundary is that anytime somebody does me wrong, I'm going to forgive them. And really, to be honest with you, that whole last one, the only reason and the biggest reason why I have that one in there is to guard my heart from getting to a place that I don't want it to be. And here's what I realized tonight, is that as you're sitting here, that before you came here, that things that you've experienced throughout the course of your life and things that you're going to experience as you get older, there's going to be things that are going to come at you and try to attack you, and they're going to try to impact your heart. I'll give you some examples of things that try to come at us and impact our hearts. How about disappointment? Maybe there's a parent in your life that told you that they were going to do something for you. And you've got a history with them where you're like, they're never going to come through. And you put your faith and trust that they were finally going to come through this moment, and then they dropped the ball. And here you are now being faced with that disappointment, and it's getting into your heart, trying to cause you to think things towards that family member, towards that parent that dropped the ball, and the disappointment there. So now every time you think of them, all you think about is that painful experience where they let you down. How about a hurt? Maybe one of your friends that was like your BFF that you thought would never talk trash on you, you found out was talking trash on you behind your back. And then maybe they tried to lie about it later on, and you caught them red-handed in the lie. And as a result of them talking about you and as a result of them lying to you about it, you now experience all this hurt and all this pain, where when you see a picture of them that pops up on your timeline that says, hey, from this time 1 year ago, here's what you were doing. Or when you see them as you're scrolling through Instagram and you see their story, or somebody else mentions them, or you hear a song that triggers all this memory that you have of them, the only thing you can think about is the pain that they caused you in your life. And as a result of that, there is this hurt there is this anger, there is this rage that comes over you in that moment. What's it doing? It's attacking your heart. It's coming at your heart. How about this one? How about jealousy? That as you go throughout the course of your life, you're walking down the hall and you're like, man, I want some shoes like that. Why can't I be as pretty as her? How come he's got all the talent in the world? Why does he get the nice new BMW or Mercedes? He's only 16. Like, why did his parents buy him that car? And as a result, you go throughout this course of life, and anytime you see that person, you think of those possessions, those talents, those things that you wish you had, and it's impacting your heart and causing you to not like that person. Give you one more. How about your self-worth? And what I mean by that is Maybe you made a mistake in your life, or maybe you made a decision that wasn't very wise. And now when you think about yourself and the way that you view yourself, you just don't have any self-worth. It's always negative. It's always bringing you down. And it's just simply the way that you see yourself, because every time you look at yourself, all you can see in the mirror is that painful mistake, that memory where you dropped the ball, where you messed up. And what I'm trying to get you to see, and I know it's kind of heavy that we're jumping in on this right here like this, but what I want you to see and what I want you to understand is that, quite honestly, is that there is any number of things in our lives that are going to come at you, and if you'll allow it to, it can get into your heart and infect it. And quite honestly, when we talk about boundaries, I think one of the biggest things that we need to do is we need to learn how to guard our hearts and put boundaries in place so that things like we've talked about and things that you're going to face when you come in, as you go throughout the course of your life, and things that you've already faced, don't begin to infect and impact your heart. I think this is the most vital thing that any person can learn. Everybody all right back there? I think this is the most vital thing that any one of us can learn. Did y'all see that? It's like I said that, and then there was like a mic drop from heaven. Just boom, boom, right? So y'all gonna engage with me here and listen? And it's like, yes. Like God in heaven is like, Mike is preaching good. Y'all need to pay attention. Y'all need to listen, right? So we've got to learn to guard our hearts. It's vital for us. So if you got your Bibles, I want you to open up your Bible to Proverbs chapter 4, okay? Proverbs chapter 4. While you guys are flipping there, how many of y'all brought your Bibles? The goal that the most we've ever had is 23. I think the goal is 24. How many brought your actual Bible? So we have one. I'm going to start over here. 1, 2. Is there a Bible? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We're getting there, guys. We're getting closer, okay? Like most we've ever had on Wednesday night is 23. We can do this. So anyway, those of you that didn't bring your actual Bible, you maybe got your Bible on your phone. That's okay. Or if you don't have any of those, we're going to put the words up on the screen for you. We're going to big Bible for you. And so, Proverbs chapter 4. We're going to look at verses 20 through 27. So for those of you that are taking notes, you can go ahead and write that down. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 20 through 27. The book of Proverbs is considered to be a book of wisdom. And as we learned last week as we kicked off this series, that's how we are to try to live our lives wisely, not like the fools. And so this is really good for a good place for us to start when it comes to living our lives with wisdom. And a matter of fact, the book of Proverbs is written by a guy by the name of Solomon. And Solomon, scripture tells us, is the wisest man to ever live and to ever walk on the planet Earth. As a matter of fact, there are people that when Solomon was alive and reigning as king, people would travel all across the world to ask him questions, to hear him speak, to hear him give input and things that he had discovered just because he was so wise and knowledgeable far beyond his years and just to get his input on things. And so he's the one that's writing to this. So understand this. If you're here and maybe you don't even have a relationship with Jesus, that's A-okay. But understand this, that the text that we're about to look at is written historically by one of the wisest men to ever walk the face of the planet. So it's good information for us to maybe tune into and listen to. And here's what he says. Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 20. He says, "My child, pay attention to what I say." So the very first thing he's letting us know, pay attention to what I say. Listen carefully to my words. Don't lose sight of them. Let them penetrate deep into your heart, for they bring life to those who find them and healing to their whole body. And so right off the bat, understand this, that the wisest man in the world is beginning to talk to us. And the very first thing that he says is, hey, look here, pay attention, put your phone down, just engage with me. You need to make sure that you're listening carefully to the words that I'm about to share with you. And look at what the very next verse is in verse 23 about what it is that he says here. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. If you're taking notes, this is the key verse for tonight. Highlight it, underline it, put a star by it, whatever you need to do. But here's what he says. Guard your heart above all else. for it determines the course of your life. And so understand this, that the wisest man that has ever walked is here. And in this scripture, he's saying, hey, pay attention, listen to me. And the very first thing that he begins to tell us to do, and he says, above all else, the number one thing that you need to do in your life is guard your heart. And then he says, why we're to guard our hearts? And he says, because out of your heart's going to determine the way that you go in life. Your heart's going to determine where you end up. Your heart's going to determine the course of your life. Which tells me this, our heart and your heart is something that should become extremely valuable to you. Matter of fact, I see more people in today's world, they long for security, they long to just be wanted, they long to be needed, and as a result of that need, they go around and they give their hearts away to any person, to any friend, to any guy, to any girl that'll show them just a little bit of attention. But because those people don't have their heart and interest, what ends up happening is that person ends up just discarding their heart, causing even more pain and more issues. And what Solomon is saying, he's saying, hey, your heart is extremely valuable. You need to be careful with it. You need to tend to it. You need to look after it. You need to protect it because it's the source of everything that you're going to do in life. It's the source of it. So you might be sitting here thinking, I see that. That's pretty important for me to do. Like I see that. Matter of fact, so how do I do that? If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. Is the best way to guard your heart is through boundaries. I want to encourage you to guard your heart through boundaries. You want to learn how to guard your heart? It's through boundaries. You say, well, Pastor Mike, I hear you. I'm keeping up with you. Well, what kind of boundaries do I need in my life? I am glad that you asked. Thank all of you for asking that question right now. Matter of fact, Solomon's actually going to tell us in the next 4 verses some boundaries that we need to have in our life, about some things that we need to make sure that we've got to help us guard our hearts. And so what I want to do the rest of our time together is I want to give you 5 boundaries to guard your heart against, okay? And we're going to look at these in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 24 through 27. And so I'm going to read it, and then we're going to break it down. And here's what it says. It says, avoid all perverse talk. Stay away from corrupt speech. Look straight ahead and fix your eyes on what lies before you. Mark out a straight path for your feet. Stay on the safe path. Don't get sidetracked. Keep your feet from following evil. I'm going to read this one more time because I really want these words to penetrate your heart and just kind of set in. And so just listen to these words, okay? Verse 24. Avoid all perverse talk. Stay away from corrupt speech. Look straight ahead and fix your eyes on what lies before you. Mark out a straight path for your feet. Stay on the safe path. Don't get sidetracked. Keep your feet from following evil. And so let's just break this down for a second, okay? For the next few minutes, let's just kind of break all of these down, okay? First thing that it says to do is avoid all perverse talk. And so let me just say this. This is written to you and to me. And so if you're taking notes, one area, boundary number 1 that you need to guard yourself against, or that you need to have in place to guard your heart is the words you use. Your words. Your words. The Bible makes it very clear that your words are powerful, that they have the ability to frame your world for you. James chapter 3 actually talks about your tongue. I encourage you guys to go read James chapter 3 on your own time later tonight. But one of the things that James chapter 3 is, it gives us so many examples of how powerful our tongue is. And one of the examples that it uses is like a bit in a horse's mouth. Now, again, y'all found out last week I was like biggest flirt, so girls were kind of my thing, right? I dated a girl that had a horse, and she had bought this horse to compete in competitions with it, and it was an ex-race horse, basically, that had gotten injured, and she ended up finding it, getting a good deal on it, all that type of stuff. And it was my job when she was competing to help walk the horse in between things, and this thing was massive. Like, it honestly scared me. Like, I'm walking with this horse, like, up like this, holding on to its leash or whatever it is that leads it. I don't even know. And the thing is so big and so strong. I'm like, this thing could just rip my arm off right now and trample me to death and would not feel bad. And so I want you to understand this, that in James chapter 3, though, it says that a bit in a horse's mouth controls the direction that the whole horse will go. And the essence that it's trying to get us to understand in James chapter 3 is that your words are powerful and that they can be very small but yet control a big, powerful thing, like a horse. Then it goes on to say, just like a rudder on a ship. And for those of you who don't know, the rudder of a ship is a very small piece of the boat. And what it does is it turns the boat and it steers the entire boat. And what the James chapter 3 is telling us about our words is that they're so powerful that they can be small, but yet they can cause big things to happen. And a matter of fact, if you continue to read in James chapter 3, it equivalates our tongue to being a fire. And then it uses this example that forests can be set on fire and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of acres can be lost simply by fire because of one little spark. And it says your tongue can be that little spark. And what I want you guys to understand and see from this is that your words are so powerful. And so the question that I have for you tonight is this: what are your words? Are they negative? Are they words that lift people up? When you talk about other people, do you gossip about them? Do you spread lies and things that are untruthful that you believe as truth because you heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody? What are the words that you say about yourself? Are they words that you're ugly? Are they words that you'll never amount to anything? Are they words like nobody cares about you? You don't matter? Because I'm telling you, if those are the words that you're using, that's going to frame your world and that's going to get into your heart and cause you to begin to view yourself and see yourself in that way. And that is all nothing but lies. So you need to watch the words that you're using about others. How do you talk about your mom and dad? How do you talk about that teacher that maybe you kind of butt heads with? You want to guard your heart? Be careful of the words that you use. I got to keep moving because I got 5 of these, and that's number 1. Let's move on. How about this one? Next thing that it says to do, it says stay away from corrupt speech. So boundary number 2 that you need to have in your life to help you guard your heart is this right here. What and who you listen to. Y'all thought talking was bad? How about what are you listening to? And then who is it that's saying it that you listen to in your life? If you constantly are listening to people that are negative, that are just doom and gloom, that are like, oh, the whole world, the sky is falling, and they're not bringing you any type of solutions or help to it. They're constantly talking negatively about themselves and about other people. You might need to establish a boundary in your life that says, you know what, to guard my heart from that, maybe I need to make sure that I'm not around those types of people. Or vice versa. How about this one? How about the people that tell you everything that you want to hear? Can I tell you something? All the ladies look at me. There is a lot of smooth talking guys that'll tell you everything that they want, that you want to hear, that you think that, oh, they're this best thing ever. But quite honestly, they don't mean any of it. And what happens is because they tell you what you want to hear, you drop your guard and allow them in, and then all they end up doing is leaving you heartbroken afterwards? Guys, the same thing is true. Girls, where's all my guys at? Look at me, guys. I'm telling you guys, if all she's telling you is how great you are, that you're perfect, she's lying. You know how I know that? Because I'm a dude. We are not perfect. All right? Come on, fellas, let's just be honest. How many of y'all know we got some issues? We need a lot of help in life, right? So what you should be looking for, instead of the woman that tells you everything that you want to hear, you should be looking for the woman that tells you what you need to hear. The one that says, hey, knock that off. Hey, quit acting up here. Hey, you're better than that. Let's just be real, guys. That's what we need. We need that woman to put the guidelines on us that says, hey, don't do that. Matter of fact, I'll say this for everybody. The people that you need most in your life are the people that are willing to speak up and say, hey, you're going down a wrong path. The people that you should have and should want and desire in your life are the people that are willing to speak up and say, hey, I think you're making a mistake. I love you, but there's some things on this that just don't add up with who you want to be in the course of your life. And the way that you're acting right now is not who you ever want to be. You've never been this way before. Why are you doing this? Or you need to look out for them. Those are the people that you should long to have in your life. And if you want to protect your heart, one of the things that you need to do is begin to evaluate and put some boundaries about who you're going to listen to and what it is that you're going to allow them to say to you. Like I said, I got to keep moving. How about this? Number 3. Is this good so far? Yeah. Number 3 says, look straight ahead and fix your eyes on what lies before you. So one of the other boundaries that you need to have in your life to help guard your heart is what you focus on. What you focus on. I don't want to say this. What are you focusing on? And what I mean by this is, are you focusing on where you want to be and who you want to be? Or are you focusing on who you were and what was behind you and the mistake that you made? Proverbs, again, look at it. He says, look straight ahead and fix your eyes on what lies before you. And you know what I see people doing time and time again? Is they want to turn around and they want to look back to the past. They want to go back to the terrible memory that they had. And you know what they want to do? They want to set up a tent and they just want to live there. And they want to say, you know what? This is going to be me. I can't move on with my life because of this. And look at me. That event doesn't define you. That event is not the end of your story. But yet, we want to live our lives like it is. It's not. And what Solomon realized, wisest man ever, he's saying, hey, don't look back. Pick yourself up. Dust off yourself. Learn from your mistakes. Move forward. Make sure that you don't fall again. But keep your eyes forward on what lies before you. Fix your focus, again, on who you want to be and where you want to be. Because if you're just going to camp out here, your heart is going to find a place, and all of a sudden that's going to overtake your heart, is that you're a failure, that you're a mistake, that you're not ever going to amount to anything. And that's not what we need to do. We need to fix our focus. You know what happens when you fix your focus and you take your mind off of that painful experience in the past and the hurt, and you begin to look forward to what lies ahead of you? You know what happens? Dreaming begins to happen. You're like, look, I don't know what's around the next corner, but here's what I do know. It could be anything. And maybe it's me doing this. Maybe it's me preaching. Maybe it's me being a youth pastor. Maybe it's me ministering to my friends. Maybe it's me leading a small group. Maybe it's me getting past that, not ever having to struggle with that again. Maybe it's me sharing with my friends about my struggle so that way they'll get free from all of the things that they've been kept up in. Maybe it's me getting a job. Maybe it's me getting an A. It could be anything. But when you look forward, you begin to dream about what is in front of you, and you begin to hope for what's to come. And this is why we've got to have that boundary about what we focus in on. So don't look back. Look to the future. Boundary number 4 is this. That was boundary 3. Boundary number 4. It says, mark out a straight path for your feet and stay on the safe path. Boundary number 4, for those of you who are taking notes that you need to have to help guard your heart, is this: where you step. He says, hey, look, as you're looking ahead, begin to mark out a straight path for your feet. And what he's saying there, I truly believe in this moment, what King Solomon is saying to all of us, he's saying, hey, you need to slow down a little bit, and you need to begin to take an inventory of, okay, are you going down the right path? Am I walking where I want to walk? Am I putting my foot in the right place, or am I putting my foot in a place that could potentially harm me? And so one of the things that I think is healthy to help keep your heart protected and guarded so that you don't end up in a place that you don't want to be is simply watching where you step and slowing down and taking an inventory and saying, okay, is this where I want to be? And look at me. When you begin to take that inventory, you cannot ask yourself this question. You cannot ask yourself this question: is there anything wrong with this? That seems to be the biggest question that all of us face. Is there anything wrong with this? And that cannot be the question when you begin to reflect on your own life. And here's why. Look at me. Because when you ask that question, there could be things that there's nothing wrong with. And the way that our minds work is if there's nothing wrong with it, then that must be okay and that must be right. And it being okay and it not being wrong should not be the filter for your life. The filter for your life when you begin to look and reflect on your life needs to be this: is this the wise thing for me to do? This is what we learned last week, was to live our life wisely and not as the fools do. And so we need to stop asking ourselves the question, is there anything wrong with this? We need to begin to ask ourselves the question of, is this the wise thing for me to do? Because here's what will happen. You know where you want your life to be. You know where you want your life to go. And there's a lot of good things out there that can be perfectly fine. But they'll take you down a path that doesn't lead you to where you want to go and who you want to be. So we need to begin to ask ourselves, is this the wise thing for me to do? And I'll just say this, that as you begin to put boundaries in your life and say, you know what, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, there are going to be people in your life that may not like the boundaries that you have set up. They may not like them. And so they're going to come to you and they're going to be, why are you doing this? You're not my friend anymore. You don't like me. All these things. Can I tell you how you overcome that feeling of, I don't want to let my friend down. I don't want to cause them to think that I'm judging them or that I disagree with the boundaries that they have for their life. Here's how you overcome that. You look at that person and you say, look, I love you, but for me, this just isn't the wise thing to do. I love you, but for me, this just isn't the wise thing to do. That's how you overcome that feeling. That's how you overcome that friend that's coming to you. I love you, but for me, this isn't the wise thing to do. All right, let's start this whole thing up. There's one more boundary that I want to give you that'll help you to guard your heart. The last part of this verse there says, don't get sidetracked. Keep your feet from following evil, right? Keep your feet from following evil. The last boundary that you need to be aware of to help guard your heart is that of temptations. Number 5, temptations. Temptations. And here's what temptation does. Temptation looks at you and says, you know what, it's okay. It's not going to burn you at the very front, at the very start, but it'll end up burning you in the end. Let me give you an example. Obviously, it's cold outside right now. And the other night, I went to a friend of mine's house, and they had us over, and they did a fire. And so we were out there at the fire, and we were all cold, and so we scooted up close to the fire, but we stopped at a safe distance so that we didn't end up getting burned. And it's kind of like this. Well, this isn't going to work. Okay. My hand represents your life. Fire represents the temptation. Here's what ends up happening. Temptation pulls you in, and it starts to make you feel good. Like, you know what? That's warm. That feels nice. That's really good. But here's what happens. Temptation pulls you in. I can't do it because I'm going to end up getting burned. But here's what happens. Is you can mess around with temptation and swipe over and be like, you know what? That didn't burn me. That wasn't bad. But each time, it pulls you closer and closer and closer until finally you end up getting burned. Okay? I'm not going to burn myself because y'all are like, holy, go home. I'll have parents call me, why did you burn yourself? No. Do you see what I'm saying though? Forget the crazy illustration, but that's what temptation will do. Is it'll make you think that it's safe. It'll make you think that it's there for you. But the reality is it's a slippery slope that pulls you in, and eventually it's going to leave you end up being burned. So here's what I want to do. I want to ask the worship team to come back up. We're going to reflect on this time and this message. And I want you to think about these areas. What I want you to do actually is I want you to watch your step as we worship. And take a moment and just say, you know what? God, I'm going to reflect. And I want to make sure that I'm putting my feet in the right places. I want to make sure that I'm being wise. I want to make sure that my words are not forming a life for me that I don't want, that are causing issues in my heart. I want to make sure that the people that I'm allowing into my life to speak to me and the people that I'm listening to are the right people, and that they're not causing issues in my heart, because I want to end up where I want to be and where you want me to be. And if I allow these things to impact me, it's going to end up pulling me down a course and ending up in a place that I don't want to be. Maybe it's a temptation that you've been wrestling with. And maybe it's there and it's good now, but I'm telling you, it's about to burn you. And I don't want you to end up burned. And so as we worship, I want you guys just to close your eyes, bow your heads, and just have a moment alone with you and God. Reflect on what it is that the boundaries that you need in your life. I want to encourage you that if there's something wrong in your heart, to give it to God. Matter of fact, David prayed this. He said, God, created me a clean heart, oh God. And if that's you, if there's something in your heart that you're like, hey, God, I need you to move this out of my heart, just pray and ask him to do that in this moment. So let's all do this. Let's all just close our eyes. Let's bow our heads. Let's just begin to go to him and talk to him. And as worship starts, feel free to continue to have that moment between just you and God. If you want to stand up, lift your hands, that's okay too. This time right here is not about us. It's all about you following God. So let's just spend a moment with him.
Thanks for coming. Hope you guys enjoyed it. See you guys next week. was so weird.